There comes a moment in your life when heaven sends a signal that is not soft, not subtle, but thunderous. A divine moment when the atmosphere shifts, when everything in the spiritual realm seems to lean in. And God says, enough. And if you're listening now, it's because you have reached that moment. This is not a coincidence. This is not random. This is a divine summons. Chosen one, hear me clearly. God is shutting every mouth that ever dared to speak against you, and not in secret, not behind closed doors, but publicly, powerfully, and undeniably. You've been misjudged, haven't you? You've walked into rooms where people smiled in your face, but sharpened their tongues behind your back. You've felt the sting of betrayal, not from strangers, but from those you gave your heart to, the very ones you supported, the very ones you prayed for. They turned around and dragged your name through the mud. They mocked your vision. They belittled your anointing. They whispered behind your back, thinking they could poison your purpose and dim the light that God Himself placed on you. But here's what they never understood. You were never built by people's opinions. You were forged by fire, molded by pain, and crowned by the Spirit. They thought their gossip could destroy you, but they didn't realize you were born to rise through rejection. They thought their lies could confine you, but they didn't know the hand of the Lord was guiding you even in the shadows. Yes, you were silent for a season. You took the insults quietly. You didn't clap back. You didn't expose them, though you could have. You stayed still, trusting that your God was taking notes. And let me tell you, He was. Every insult, every betrayal, every closed door, every plot, every scheme, every attempt to smear your name or bury your gifts, He saw it all. And while they laughed, heaven was building a case. While they mocked, heaven was planning your elevation. Do you know why their words could never truly destroy you? Because they were speaking against someone God had already validated. The moment you were chosen, you became untouchable in the eyes of heaven. The pain didn't mean you were cursed. It meant you were marked. That pressure wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The isolation, that wasn't rejection. It was a redirection to divine intimacy. And now the season has shifted. The silence is over. God is speaking on your behalf, and His voice is louder than their lies. What they spoke in secret, God is now confronting in public. Every false accusation is being overturned. Every hidden agenda is being exposed. Every tongue that rose against you is falling silent, not because you clapped back, but because God Himself is defending you. And when God steps into a situation, there is no debate. There is no argument. There is no room for confusion. He silences the critics with truth, humbles the proud with justice, and exalts the humble with honor. You may not feel ready. You may still be healing, but heaven has made its decision. You are vindicated. You are restored. You are rising, not by force, not by revenge, but by divine authority. And that's what's confusing your enemies right now. They don't understand how you survived. They don't understand why you're still standing, still smiling, still shining. They can't comprehend how the very things that were meant to destroy you became the stepping stones to your destiny. But let them be confused. Let them wonder. Let them wrestle with their own words as they watch you become everything they said you'd never be. Because here's the truth. God is using your life as a testimony, not just to bless you, but to show others what divine justice looks like, what favor looks like, what unstoppable purpose looks like. You weren't just chosen to survive. You were chosen to be a living declaration of God's power. And now the mouths that cursed you will have no choice but to watch as the blessings unfold. They won't be able to deny it. They won't be able to ignore it. And the most astonishing part, you'll walk in grace. You'll bless those who cursed you. You'll rise without bitterness, because elevation doesn't require vengeance, just obedience. So if you've been feeling something shifting in your spirit, if you've been sensing that something is about to break open, you're not wrong. This is confirmation. God is about to make it known who you really are, not just to your friends, not just to your family, but to every single person who misjudged your spirit and mishandled your heart. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are not average. You are chosen, appointed, and divinely protected. And that weight you've been carrying, that heaviness in your chest, that storm of emotions, it's not weakness, it's transformation. You are stepping out of the season of silence and into the season of supernatural justice. Everything is aligning, everything is coming together, not because you forced it, but because He ordained it. Don't apologize for the anointing on your life. Don't shrink to make others feel comfortable. Don't water yourself down just to avoid more conflict. You've done that long enough. This is the time to stand in your light boldly, because the same God who anointed you in secret is now announcing you in public. He's making it clear, this one belongs to me. And when God speaks, every other voice must fall silent. There's a holy silence falling over the lives of those who dared to speak against you. It's not just awkward silence. It's divine, a silence soaked in judgment, a silence that shouts louder than their gossip ever could, because now their words are catching up to them. Their tongues, once loose with lies and slander, are now tied in knots by the very hand of God. And chosen one, if you've been walking through a battlefield of words and whispers, let me remind you of something eternal. You were born to withstand this war. You weren't just surviving those battles, you were being forged through them. Every attack wasn't a setback, it was a training ground. Every tear you cried in private was watering the soil of your destiny. They thought they were breaking you down, but all they did was wake up something ancient in your spirit, something holy, something unstoppable. That deep, divine part of you that remembers you were chosen long before the pain, long before the rejection, long before the battle began. Let's talk about the weight you carried, the invisible battles you fought when no one was watching, the nights when the lies hurt more than any weapon, the moments you questioned, why me, God? And yet, even through the trembling, even through the heartache, you kept walking. Maybe not fast, maybe not loud, but you moved, and that's what separates you from them. You didn't curse the darkness, you became light in it. The warfare you endured was never about punishment. It was proof of who you are. When you're chosen, your life becomes a battlefield, not because of anything you did wrong, but because of the power you carry. The enemy knew who you were even before you did. That's why the attacks started early. That's why the slander was so fierce. That's why they tried to bury your voice before it even rose. Because they saw something in you that they couldn't control, so they tried to silence it. But what they didn't know, what they still can't comprehend, is that when God ordains a life, no weapon formed against it shall prosper. They may have tried to assassinate your character, but they couldn't assassinate your calling. They may have manipulated your reputation, but they couldn't manipulate your anointing. You see, reputation is built in the public, but calling, that's rooted in the divine. And here's the revelation. God never needed them to see who you were. He only needed you to believe it. That's why the pain was so personal. That's why it had to come from people close to you. Because it wasn't just about breaking your heart. It was about breaking your dependence on them. So God allowed the betrayal, not to destroy you, but to deliver you from the illusion that you needed their approval. Chosen one, every battle you've faced was strategic. Every season of silence was sacred. You were never being ignored. You were being protected, hidden, in plain sight, shielded from those who pretended to love you but plotted in secret. You were in the middle of a holy setup. The battlefield wasn't your end. It was your birthing place. And now something is stirring in the atmosphere. You can feel it. A shift. A holy vengeance, not born of hatred, but of justice. God is responding, not with the same malice they used, but with righteous power. He's shutting the mouths of those who mocked you, not because you demanded it, but because heaven demands it. God does not play about His anointed, and while they were plotting, He was preparing. He was preparing the table in the presence of your enemies, not in their absence, but right in front of them. And the greatest irony? They will be the audience to your elevation. They will witness the very thing they said would never happen. They said you were done. They said you were a fraud. They said you'd never make it out. But God is not only rewriting the narrative, He's broadcasting it. Now the ones who cursed you are watching in silence as the oil drips from your head. The ones who doubted you are seeing the favor that cannot be faked. The ones who laughed are choking on their words, not because you're getting revenge, but because you're glowing with a peace that makes no sense. That's divine reversal. You are not where you are by accident. Every scar you carry is a mark of survival. Every wound is now a witness. You've come through fire and didn't burn. You've walked through floods and didn't drown. And the only explanation is God. That's why you intimidate them. It's not your success. It's your resilience. It's your faith. It's the way you keep showing up with grace when you should have broken down in bitterness. That quiet power you carry, it scares them. That light in your eyes that came from dark seasons, it reminds them that heaven is real, that God defends His own, that not everything can be controlled, manipulated, or explained. You are the evidence. You are the miracle. You are the one they couldn't break. And now the mouths that once spoke with arrogance are silent with awe. They're not sure how to respond to your rise. They're watching the hand of God and realizing it's out of their control. They can't cancel what they never created. They can't destroy what they didn't build. You were God's idea, before time began, before they ever formed an opinion about you. And so now, as they sit in silence, you walk in authority, not with pride, but with purpose. You're not here to prove them wrong. You're here to fulfill what God whispered over your life in secret. They may not clap. They may never apologize, but their silence is enough. It's confirmation. It's evidence that the shift is real, that your warfare was worth it, that your obedience was not in vain. Chosen one, your life is a living sermon. You don't need to shout. You don't need to explain. Just keep rising, keep healing, keep walking in the light, because every step you take now is a declaration. What God blesses, no man can curse. There comes a sacred hour when heaven steps in, not quietly, not gently, but with thunder in its footsteps and justice in its hands. That hour, chosen one, is now, and not only is God silencing the mouths that rose against you, He is preparing to do it publicly, not for vanity, not to satisfy ego, but because divine justice must be seen. Your pain was visible, your trials were witnessed, and now your vindication will not be hidden. This is not about revenge, it's about revelation. Revelation of who you really are, revelation of the calling you carry, revelation of the truth they tried to bury beneath lies, shame, and accusation. They tried to rewrite your story with a bitter pen, but God is the final author. He's not just editing the last chapter, He's flipping the entire script. There are seasons where God hides you, but then there comes a moment when He reveals you. And when He does, it's never subtle. It's a loud unveiling, a divine spotlight, a resurrection of everything they said was dead. And when God reveals you, He also reveals the truth about those who tried to destroy you. You see, some people didn't just misunderstand you, they misrepresented you intentionally. They didn't just walk away, they tried to drag your name through every pit they could find, hoping you'd stay buried. They didn't just lie about you, they built entire narratives to distort who you were. But here's the holy reversal. The very pit they dug for you is where their own credibility will fall. Because when God steps into a situation, the lies unravel. The manipulation loses its grip. The fog of confusion lifts. And suddenly the truth shines so clearly that no mouth can deny it, not even the ones that tried to hide it. Chosen one, you're about to walk into that moment. A moment where everything they whispered in darkness will be exposed by light. A moment where every distorted word will shatter under the weight of truth. This isn't just personal, it's prophetic. You're stepping into a divine reversal where those who once stood over you will have to watch you rise. And they won't understand how it happened. They'll search for explanations, but there will be none, because it was never by human strength. It was never about networking, strategy, or status. It was divine favor. God is doing it so that no one will be able to take the credit. He's blessing you in a way that silences every critic, not through argument, but through evidence. Evidence that His hand has been on your life. Evidence that your suffering wasn't wasted. Evidence that the crown you carry wasn't earned by applause, but by obedience, endurance, and unwavering faith. And what's more powerful than vindication? Peace. The peace that floods your soul when you no longer feel the need to prove yourself. The peace that anchors you when people speak your name and you no longer flinch. That's the healing coming to your spirit. You're not just stepping into justice, you're stepping into wholeness, into freedom, into the release from the trauma their words caused. You deserve that peace. After all the silent battles, after all the prayers you prayed through tears, after all the times you chose love when hatred would have been easier. You deserve to breathe without fear, to walk without heaviness, to shine without shame. That's the divine reward for staying faithful when you could have turned bitter. So if you've felt an urge to isolate lately, if you've felt God pulling you away from certain people or situations, that's not a coincidence. That's a holy separation, because elevation requires it. He's removing every voice that tried to label you so He can reintroduce you the right way. And when He does, no one will be able to question it. The same mouths that dismissed you will be speechless. The same eyes that overlooked you will be stunned. This is where your enemies become your footstool, not because you crushed them, but because God turned what they meant for harm into fuel for your ascent. You don't need to fight dirty. You don't need to return the energy. You only need to stand still, because the battle was never yours. It always belonged to the Lord. And the Lord is a righteous judge. He does not forget. He does not overlook. He repays, not in bitterness, but in truth, not with malice, but with precision. He exalts in due time, and chosen one, your time is due. This is the moment where divine justice meets divine timing. So what should you do in this hour? Keep your heart clean. Stay in alignment. Don't let the bitterness of the past corrupt the beauty of what's coming. You don't need to gloat. You don't need to explain. Your life is the explanation. Let your joy speak. Let your peace speak. Let your favor speak. They'll say, "There's something about them I can't explain." That's the anointing. That's the glory of God. And yes, you may still feel the residue of the old pain. Healing is not always instant, but it's happening. Every day the weight is lifting. Every day the wounds are closing. Every day your spirit is remembering what it means to be whole again. Let that healing work in you. Let it be slow. Let it be sacred. Because when you rise, you won't rise wounded. You'll rise whole. You'll rise wise. You'll rise radiant. This is your confirmation. God is publicly rewriting your story. Every lie is losing its grip. Every critic is going silent. And you are stepping into the most powerful version of yourself yet. Not to prove a point, but to fulfill a promise. You didn't come this far just to survive. You came this far to reign, to influence, to shift atmospheres, to carry something holy that changes everything it touches. So don't fear the silence. It's not emptiness, it's preparation. God is making room. He's clearing the airwaves. He's silencing the noise. Because when it's time for you to speak, the world will have no choice but to listen. Have you ever asked yourself why the warfare was so relentless? Why the attacks came not from distant enemies, but from the ones you thought were for you? Why every time you stepped into a new level of peace, purpose, or progress, someone tried to pull you back into the pit? This wasn't random, chosen one. You weren't just under attack because of what you did. You were under attack because of who you are. Let's pull back the veil. The truth is, your existence exposes their emptiness. The light you carry unsettles those who've grown comfortable in darkness. Your authenticity threatens every mask they wear. You are the embodiment of what they pretended to be, and that's why they came for you. Not because you harmed them, not because you wronged them, but because your presence became a mirror, one they could no longer look into without confronting their own shadows. That's the paradox of divine favor. It attracts both favor and fury. People will celebrate you publicly but curse you privately, smile with you in the daylight and plot against you by night. And you, with your pure heart, kept giving the benefit of the doubt. You thought their silence was peace, but it was plotting. You thought their indifference was maturity, but it was envy boiling beneath the surface. It's hard to accept, but here's the revelation. You had to be betrayed. You had to be slandered. You had to be misunderstood. Because without it, you wouldn't have learned to rely on God alone. Without it, you would have remained entangled in false loyalty, tied to people who secretly resented your light. So God let the snakes slither, not to hurt you, but to reveal the room, to separate the pure from the polluted, to purge what could not go with you into your next season. And make no mistake, the mouth that cursed you was never stronger than the voice that called you. Heaven's voice still thunders above the noise, and that voice said, "You are mine." That voice called you set apart. That voice declared your purpose before you were ever in the womb. And that divine voice has never wavered, not even for a second. Not when you doubted yourself, not when you cried yourself to sleep, not when they said you were done. God's call over your life has never been revoked. Now let's go deeper into the psychology of those who tried to destroy you. They weren't just dealing with you, they were wrestling with their own insecurity. Their attacks were projections of their unhealed wounds. Their gossip was a cry for control, because when people can't control your spirit, they try to control your image. When they can't own your greatness, they try to minimize it. They tried to make you smaller, not because you were too much, but because they were never enough in their own eyes. Understand this, chosen one. Broken people often respond to wholeness with hostility. People who've lived in deception will always resist truth. People who've hidden in shadows will resent anything that shines. That's why you were targeted. That's why you were lied on. That's why they tried to isolate you, because deep down, they knew who you were. They just didn't want others to see it. And that's where your soul mission comes in. You weren't sent here to be liked. You weren't called to fit in. You were sent to disrupt, to awaken, to call things out of slumber. You are a spiritual alarm clock in a world that's addicted to sleep. You speak truth in a realm addicted to deception. And yes, truth is often crucified before it's honored. But resurrection always follows. Always. So don't resent the persecution. Don't regret the isolation. It was necessary. It was your proving ground. It was heaven's way of separating you from the noise so you could hear the truth about who you are, so you could remember your power, so you could awaken to your purpose, not as an echo of someone else's expectations, but as an original blueprint from God Himself. You are here to disturb comfort zones, to awaken sleeping hearts, to walk in a grace that cannot be explained. You weren't chosen to blend in, you were chosen to stand apart. And with that calling comes a cost you've already paid, a cost most people couldn't endure. But you endured it all, and still your spirit is intact. Still your heart is pure. Still your hands are clean. That's why the mouths are being shut, because the time for slander has passed. The time for spiritual justice has come. God is lifting the veil. Not just from your enemies, but from you. You're about to see clearly why it all had to happen the way it did. You're about to understand why they had to walk away, why they had to reject you, why you had to be left standing alone. Because only in solitude did your soul start to roar. And now the roar is uncontainable. Your soul is rising with clarity. Your heart is beating in divine rhythm. Your path is being cleared, not by human hands, but by divine decree. And those who spoke against you, they are watching, stunned, unsure of how to respond to your rising. Their mouths are silent, not from fear of you, but from awe of what God is doing through you. You became the one thing they never expected, undeniable. So don't hold back now. Don't second-guess your power. Don't dim your light for the comfort of those who once cursed it. You are not who they said you were. You never were. You are exactly who God called you to be. Flawed, yes, but faithful. Bruised, yes, but chosen. And now all of heaven is backing your voice. Every word you speak from this place of wholeness carries fire. Every step you take echoes with divine permission. This isn't the end of your story. This is the beginning of your reign. The mouths are closing, the lies are dying, and your truth is rising, clothed in glory. Stand tall, chosen one. Speak boldly, walk freely, because no matter who tried to define you, God is the only one who gets the final word. And His word over your life is still anointed, appointed, protected, powerful. So now here you are, standing at the edge of a divine unveiling. The wind in the spirit is shifting, the weight is lifting, and for the first time in a long time, the silence around you doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like holy stillness, the kind of silence that follows after God has spoken, the kind of silence that declares, "It is finished." Chosen one, it is no longer your job to defend your name. It is no longer your battle to fight back. The mouths that once raged against you, full of venom, full of pride, have fallen into stillness. Not because you shouted louder, not because you retaliated, but because God stepped in. The defender of your destiny, the guardian of your spirit, the one who saw every tear, heard every cry, and counted every wound, has now rendered His judgment. And His judgment is justice. You don't need their apology to move forward. You don't need their validation to stand tall. What you carry now is greater than their praise or their regret. You walk with the confirmation of heaven, and that is enough. That has always been enough. All along you were being protected, even in your pain. You were being hidden, not because you were unworthy, but because you were too worthy to be exposed to unworthy hands. Every delay was protection. Every betrayal was redirection. And now you can see it clearly. The mouths they used to curse you are the same mouths that cannot speak now because the fruit of your life has testified. The blessing on your life is speaking louder than their lies ever could. They said you were done, but here you are, still rising, still shining, still standing in truth. They said you would break, but here you are, unshaken, unwavering, unbothered. They said God had left you, but they didn't know He was building you. You are not just a survivor. You are a sign, a prophetic sign to the earth of what happens when someone refuses to bow to bitterness, refuses to bend under pressure, and refuses to let hate win. You didn't allow the slander to define you. You allowed it to refine you. And now you radiate with something rare, something real, something holy. This is your moment to rise, not with pride, but with power. The quiet kind of power that doesn't need an announcement. The kind of power that walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere. You're not rising to prove a point. You're rising to fulfill a promise. You're rising because heaven has ordained it. Walk like the storm didn't touch you. Speak like the fire refined you. Smile like the pain grew you, because all of that was your training ground. Every battle that tried to bury you only taught you how to stand in the fire without burning. And now they'll see it. Oh, they'll see it. The ones who watched you fall will witness your elevation. The ones who tried to silence you will hear your name echo across places they never thought you'd reach. But let your elevation be sacred. Let your rise be graceful. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to prove who you are. The favor on your life will do the speaking. Your resilience, your purity, your power, it says more than words ever could. And the most powerful revenge? Peace. Peace so deep it becomes undeniable evidence that God kept you through every storm they sent. Let this moment be your declaration. I am chosen, I am covered, I am rising. And nothing they said, nothing they planned, nothing they attempted can stop what God has spoken over me. This is more than a comeback. It's a divine coronation. You are walking into rooms where your name has already been spoken in reverence. Doors are opening not because you knocked, but because heaven has commanded it. So take a breath, chosen one. You don't have to carry it all anymore. The war is over. The mouths are shut. The judgment has been rendered, and God has spoken. Well done, my child. You trusted me. You stayed the course. Now let them watch what I do with your life. This is your confirmation. You are not cursed. You are not forgotten. You are not lost. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, on holy ground, a place where no lie can live, a place where your name is safe in God's mouth, a place where peace flows freely and power rests upon your shoulders like a mantle from heaven. As you move forward, may you walk in divine boldness. May you speak only what heaven gives you to say. May your hands only touch what is sacred. May your life continue to disrupt darkness with light, fear with faith, hate with healing. And when you look back on everything they said, everything they tried, may you smile gently and whisper, "But God." Because at the end of it all, that's the only explanation. Not your strength, not your strategy, not your connections, just God. So rise now in love, rise now in light, rise now in power. Your voice is no longer silenced. The mouths are shut. The favor has spoken, and your destiny has arrived. Amen.